Welcome to Environics Analytics webinar on wealth transfer. My name is Catherine Pearson, and I lead our finance practice here at Environics Analytics. I'm excited to introduce to you a new product we've just released called WealthTransfer. What an exciting time it is in Canada. We're about to experience the largest intergenerational wealth transfer in its history. Over the next half hour, I'll introduce to you WealthTransfer. Talk a bit about what's been happening in Canada to date, why we built the product, what it is, and how organizations can leverage wealth transfer. Let's begin with some of the key trends. Canada's population is aging, and with that comes an accumulation of wealth. Many have a desire to leave a legacy for their family. The expected inheritance by 2026 is up to $1 trillion. Many of these recipients will be millennials. In theory, banks, investment firms, and insurance companies should be the biggest benefactors of the great wealth transfer, although others like not-for-profit, real estate companies, automotive, travel, and luxury goods will be eager to help these young benefactors do something with their newfound money. The challenge is these younger generations do not have the same relationships with big brands and financial institutions as their parents did. They're expecting innovation from financial services. This is a huge threat to traditional FIs because if given the chance, they would transfer their money to tech companies like Google, Apple, and Amazon. Millennials think and behave differently from their parents and grandparents. Dr. Doug Norris, our chief demographer, has been saying this for years. Younger generations are not putting as much trust in the traditional brands. If we look at the age distribution in Canada to date, we see there's a large cohort between 55 and 74, the baby boomers, representing about 1 in 4 Canadians. The generations behind them are also quite large. Millennials and Generation X make up about 40% of Canada's population and stand to inherit the largest transfer of wealth from baby boomers. How money is being transferred is changing. It's reasonable to expect that a large proportion of the projected inheritance will be transferred via gifts that will have a positive effect on home ownership rates among young Canadians. Many affluent households are wanting to see their kids and grandkids enjoy their inheritance. Many gifts are being transferred while they're still alive so they can see them, enjoy them. Many of the gifts include helping support education, help buy a home, or buy a big gift like a car. Our population in Canada has been growing at about 1%. We are now just about to see this, we are seeing this decline with less than 1% with the aging population and witnessing more deaths than births. We look at the population growth over the next decade, we'll see a decline, but it changes when we start to look at the senior population, which will have a much larger growth. In fact, by 2036, almost 1 in 4 will be over the age of 65. This will have an impact on brands and technology and how consumers interact with products and services. As we start to think about that accumulation of wealth and that younger generation, will they have the same financial literacy and will they know what to do with the transfer of wealth when they receive it? More than $576 billion in inheritance has been received by Canadians to date. When we historically look at the age distribution, more than 50% have been over the ages of 60. Marketers need to start to think about the shift of the focus as they start to attract a younger household. The average inheritance received to date in BC was $180,000, which is double the average inheritance from provinces such as the Atlantic Canada. If we compare the average inheritance to the average net worth of Canadians by province, we see a correlation in some of the provinces. Some of the provinces like BC and Ontario have high average net worth, likely driven by real estate, are also receiving the larger inheritance to date. This is a strong correlation, but not direct. So what have we been hearing? We've been out speaking to many of you over the past year. Many of you are able to identify those in your portfolio who have a large asset base, and you're also able to identify those who are aging. The challenge is finding those recipients, the children and grandchildren who be receiving the inheritance. Do they have a relationship with you? If so, do you have a strong relationship? Will the transfer of wealth go to that generation? And if so, will they maintain a relationship with you? Financial institutions that don't already have a plan in place to capture their share of wealth transfer are already behind. Many of you are at risk of losing large volumes of assets. It's important for financial institutions to make early inroads with the receivers of inheritance to retain these assets, especially given that the younger generation are not afraid to leave their parents' advisors and take their money elsewhere, whether it be to their own advisor or start to invest online. The challenge is identifying who and where those beneficiaries are. So hence, we went out to build the product called WealthTransfer. What is WealthTransfer? WealthTransfer is a model. We predicted at the postal code level, every postal code, the likelihood to inherit money over the next year. Our model includes both the incidence and the value of the inheritance at the household level for each postal code. It's actionable at the six-digit postal code. What this means is that with your customer base, we can score your customers on who is most likely to receive an inheritance and by the value. This is a product we developed over the last year. It's a product that we will be updating on an annual basis. It's built using many reliable data sources, all privacy-friendly and actionable at the six-digit postal code. Sources include the Survey of Financial Security, Revenue Canada, Age by Income, Urbanity, Statistics Canada, and many of our econometric and demographic models that we use to project population to the inheritance to the postal code. All of our data is privacy friendly and of course can be used and integrated with all of our broad suite of data to help provide insights on who these inheritors will be. If we look at 2020, the total estimated dollars of inheritance we expect to be transferred is $36 billion in Canada. Over the next year, we're seeing a shift in the age of the beneficiaries. Now we're seeing 40% of the those to receive an inheritance be between the ages of 55 and 64. There's a shift to a younger generation. 28% are between the ages of 35 and 54. It's estimated that 1 in 5 of the first-time home buyers will get some sort of gift from their parents or other members of their family to help purchase their home. If we look at the regional distribution of the inheritance by province, we start to see a shift again from what we've seen historically. Our data suggests that Ontario will receive the bulk of the inheritance, followed by Quebec, then BC, then Alberta. Ontario, Quebec, BC, and Alberta collectively account for 85% of the total national inheritance dollars. Our model includes 3 different values: the incidence of receiving an inheritance, the total dollar, and the average dollar. This allows us to do a lot with the data. Of course, we want to look at not just the provincial distribution, but start to drill down into individual markets and even into your own trade area. Because we have this for the postal code, any standard or custom geography can be accumulated. Here we have the total inheritance potential by the top census metropolitan areas, top 10. We have the bars represent the incidence, and the line represents the inheritance potential, the average dollar. We can see that Toronto has the highest proportion of receiving inheritance, but Vancouver receives the highest average dollar. So again, depending what your goals and objectives are, you'll be able to align with the opportunity. Because this is the postal code, we can start to look at where these potential households reside. We can score those in your database and be able to look at where they are in relation to your branches or their store locations. And we can also start to integrate this with other data within Environics Analytics to provide more insight on who they are. We thought we'd take you through a case study to show how these data can be used in action on its own and with other databases from Environics Analytics. The use case we have here is we've identified 3 locations in the census subdivision of Edmonton. We've created 3 trade areas based on drive time around each of these locations. The questions we're looking to answer are, where is the opportunity for transfer of wealth in my trade area? What is the size of that overall opportunity? Who is likely to receive the inheritance and how much? How should I target and engage with them? And how do I staff appropriately? First, we begin by using the WealthTransfer database. Because we have this at the 6-digit postal code, we can create a map and look at areas that have high potential for inheritance by incidence. Here we see the southwest area, darker purple, representing a higher propensity or probability of receiving an inheritance. Similarly, we can look at it by average dollar. Interestingly, the area in the northeast actually represents a darker purple area, showing that there's higher average dollar potential for inheritance. Starting to think about this from a store location can have an impact on the staffing you have and also the skill sets and the types of products and services that you may be interested in offering. We can summarize this into a table and look at this by any market, or in this case, these 3 trade areas. We can look at the total households in each market. We can look at the inheritance potential by number of households, total dollars, and average dollars. As we move forward in this example, we'll look at the Edmonton City Center's trade area that has almost 62,000 households and also had the highest incidence for dollars of inheritance as well as inheritance by household. As we mentioned, we can integrate all of these data with our other broad suite of data from Environics Analytics. The WealthTransfer products allows us to identify which customers or which households in the marketplace are likely to receive an inheritance. By integrating our other Environics Analytics data, we can start to understand more about who these people are, what life stage they're at, and what their attitudes and motivations are, and starting to understand more about what they would do with their accumulation of wealth. We begin by segmenting the population into 3 different groups. Here we have, within this area of receiving inheritance, we have three segments: the young singles and couples, established families, and wealthy matures. All very different in life stage and may perhaps do different things with their inheritance. Understanding more about your target audience will help you start to build relationships and build products and services that will cater to their needs. By understanding what's important to them, how would they think about spending their money, what their current financial situation is, what they like to do, how you would engage with them with creative and messaging, and where they live in relation to your locations or digital offer. All of these insights are very helpful as you start to think about going to market. It's also important to start to think about what your strategy is and how you can align this opportunity. We begin by overlaying our demographic data to understand more about who these audiences are by life stage. We can see that each of them are different life stages, different people in the household, whether it be singles and couples or families or empty nesters, different education levels, as well as different occupations. Another interesting overlay is looking at their wealth characteristics, understanding what their income is or their disposable income to understand what their spending power is, what their over average net worth is, whether they own or rent a home, and the type of debt they're currently carrying. All of this can help us understand what they might do with their newfound money. Will they pay off their debt? Will they buy a new home? Maybe they'll buy a secondary home. Maybe they'll begin go on a big shopping spree. By gaining more insights about your target audience, you can start to think about that inheritance. Will they pay off their debt? Will they go shopping? Will they invest in the market? Are they already investing in the market? Maybe they'll take a grand vacation, or they'll buy a new car, or a vacation home, or perhaps upsize to a new home or renovate a house. All of these are data that we can help you understand once you know more about who the target audience is. By looking at what their current characteristics and spending habits are, it provides a lot of insight into the types of things they do. We can look at what they spent on their last vacation. We can look at the brands or affinity they have with different charities and see what they're likely to donate in the past year. We can also understand more about their financial attitudes towards advisors and paying off their debt, and understanding more about those types of conversations that could help you tailor your conversation. We talked a bit about millennials and their not having a strong relationship with the same types of brands that their parents and grandparents might have. It's also helpful to understand who's more likely to switch a brand. So switch investments institutions in the past 2 years, we can look at those who are more susceptible to switching. And this can be used to help us identify, deepen relationships and engage with existing customers, or used as an opportunity to attract new customers from those who aren't currently with you today. Companies are expected to have a higher level of accountability. This is an expectation that's primarily driven by millennials who are demanding better products and services and more authentic experiences. We're seeing a lot of innovation right now, particularly post-COVID. Here's an opportunity to start to design new products and services that would attract these new millennials and these newfound money. Understanding their brand affinity and relationship with financial institutions and investments is also helpful. We can overlay using our Money Matters data, understand what their relationship to date likely is with Big Five Bank, with credit unions, alternative banks like the Tangerines and the Simplies of the world, and also whether or not they use a full service broker, a discount broker, or life insurance company. We found that many people were complacent and pretty consistent, pretty happy with just carrying on their own way. With the recent disruption in COVID, we found there's a bigger appetite for assistance in financial services and advice. With new competitors on the horizon, it's also important to understand not just the traditional competitors, but also who some of the new competitors could be, and what the appetite is towards attracting some of these brands to these customers. Understanding who they are, where they are, and what you're up against could be very helpful. Another view we'd like to look at is our WealthCare. WealthCare is a product that we released earlier in the year that looks at the financial wellness of Canadians. Using WealthCare with WealthTransfer provides additional insight into the financial wellness and their appetite and financial acumen towards brands, as well as their planning, their appetite towards planning for the future. Just to recap, WealthCare is a financial wellness score that we've created at the 6-digit postal code, also by age. It's a product that looks at both the wealth, the attitudes, and the behaviors of Canadians. We have 4 pillars. We provide a score for each postal code, but also a score for each of the 4 pillars. First pillar is on spending. So what are people's spending habits? Are they living within their means? We know their income, their disposable income, and their discretionary income, and we also know what their likely spending habits are. Are they constantly living within their means, or are they living beyond their means? This has an impact on their overall financial wellness. The second pillar is around leverage. We know their assets and their debt, and we understand more about what their debt to asset ratios are. This helps us understand what types of debt they're carrying and the burden they may be carrying right now. The third pillar is all around planning. What are they thinking about their financial future? Do they have a will? Are they purchasing insurance? Do they have an RESP or registered savings plan? All of these are products and services that suggest they're planning for the future opposed to living for right now. Since COVID, many of the Canadians who were living for right now are finding it quite challenging. Some of these new products and services have a new interest in many of the Canadians, particularly those who have not been as financial savvy. The fourth pillar is all around their financial acumen, really understanding where they are to date and how you can help them plan for their future. By using WealthCare with the WealthTransfer, we can understand more about how these audiences are based on their financial wellness to date, and we can compare them to the market. So we can look at your customers who are most likely to receive an inheritance. We can overlay their financial wellness and understand if they're strong, moderate, or low in financial wellness. This gives us a sense of where they are right now and the type of appetite they have towards your financial services and your needs, and how you might create new products and services to attract them. Not only can we look at the financial wellness score, we can also look at each of the scores for the 4 pillars. We can see where they are, and it gives us a little more context on whether or not we should be helping them with their managing their spending, managing their debt, helping them with their planning, or their overall financial acumen. Each of these provide additional insight. We can look at the segments across 2 different dimensions. In this case, we're looking at their appetite towards planning and their financial acumen across these 3 different segments. We can see that those who are wealthy matures are stronger for planning and have stronger financial acumen. Not all of them, of course. When we drill down into local markets, we'll see that varies. Established families tend to be midway, and the young singles and couples have moderate financial acumen and lower appetite towards planning. Here's the types of conversations we'd have with each of these different segments would vary based on where they are today. Speaking about conversations, it's important to understand what their core values are. And this helps tailor that conversation and ensure that you're appealing to what their needs are. The young singles and couples are have flexible families, brand genuineness, have a stronger penchant towards risk, and have more of an ostentatious consumption. So they like to spend, and they like to go cultural sampling. So an attitude towards cultural sampling is about experience. If they travel, they may be more likely to go travel and experience, really embrace themselves in those cultures and experience the food and the culture that they're in the country where they're traveling. Established families have a very different attitudes towards the families and rejection of orderliness, personal control, which is often something that's important with regards to their financial services and how you communicate with them and let them get involved. Many of them would be self-directed, and understanding what's important to them towards their family and their financial future. Finally, we look at the wealth matures, where we see some additional social values, stronger ones towards legacy and personal control and community involvement, and pursuit of originality. So these are some opportunities to provide some unique products and services that they would be unique to this group, that feels very personalized. They have a strong legacy towards leaving their legacy both to their family or to their community or to their own internal community or their culture. And community involvement is important to them as well. So again, lots of opportunity to be able to tailor conversations around these groups. So to summarize, WealthTransfer is a product at the 6-digit postal code that predicts we predict their inheritance as both the incidence of inheritance and dollar. With that, we can go into any market and look at the market opportunity, whether that be a big market, whether it be province market or a trade area, custom trade area, to help you size out that opportunity for new acquisition growth, and be able to start to deepen your relationships with existing customers for investments or paying off debt. Because we have this at the postal code level, we can also use this to identify customers and non-customers in your market to be able to strengthen those relationships and deepen them with the types of financial relationships that they would need in order to support them as they accumulate new wealth and help them make sure that they're able to invest it responsibly and be able to use it to support their needs. Customer experience, when we look at where they are in relation to your stores or branches, this allows you the opportunity to start to look at your needs for staffing and the types of staff and skill sets required based on who's likely to receive an inheritance, but also their overall net worth and their investment portfolio to date. This allows you to start to think about the skill sets that are required and the best way to engage, whether that be through brokers or online. Finally, we talked about creating audiences and being able to overlay other intelligence, whether it be regarding their creative, their digital preferences, their channel preferences, their media habits, and also just being able to align with your customers or your members in your database so that you can align with your strategy. Many of you have key target segments that you're interested in targeting. This allows you to identify and prioritize those who are in your target segments and be able to find customers or prospective customers in your market who are likely to inherit that can help you accelerate your growth in these markets. Many of you have relationships with only one type of relationship, whether it be with one product or one type of service like banking. By diversifying and expanding into the investment side, by engaging with even one of these customers, the ROI is a positive experience for you. So to summarize, wealth transfer for your organization. We've just talked about we're about to experience the largest wealth transfer in Canada. There's a huge opportunity here for a surgence of assets to be transferred, and make sure that the beneficiaries have the skill sets to be able to manage those assets, help them support, whether it be to purchase new products and services or to manage their debt. We know that wealth transfer is different today than it used to be. Even in Canada, we're seeing that it's a younger generation now that's starting to receive it. We're seeing that the transfer of wealth is happening now, not just only at death, but also is being transferred while people are alive to their children and grandchildren. And we're seeing that those recipients of the wealth are the bequest boom have a different relationship with brands than their parents and grandparents. All of this has a significant impact on what you'll do. The industry is changing. We're definitely seeing that, and there's lots of new innovation. It's important to think that customers, you can't assume that customers will stay with you just because their parents had the money. Does not mean that the recipients will stay with you the same way. So important to start to align and identify who these people are in your database, who they are in your marketplace, and start to build strategies around the newfound wealth to accelerate your growth in your market and within your customer database. I'd like to thank all of you for your time today. If you have any questions regarding wealth transfer, we encourage you to reach out to inquiries@environicsanalytics.ca we'll direct you to your practice leader, and they'd be happy to answer any questions specific to you. Thank you very much, and we look forward to speaking with you further.